Hey everybody, my name is Ted Forbes. Welcome back to another edition of the Art of Photography blog. We are vlogging quasi-daily. I'm trying to do it daily, but anyway, the last vlog that I put up, which was actually 2 days ago now, I shared something that I almost didn't post. For a number of reasons. I just, it's not real photography related. We've been through the whole camera review thing and all. But it was something that was really difficult for me to do. And, if you haven't seen it, I quit my teaching job, which was just a part-time thing, but I've done it for 10 years. It was a hard thing to do because I really genuinely care about teaching, as you can tell. And I have a full-time job and everything else, but it's time to move on from that thing in my life. And I explained why. And the comments and response that I got back was very touching and very surprising that I got as many as I did. I got a lot of really nice emails from people, kind of outside the videos. And then, if you go look at the YouTube entry from yesterday, there's a lot of comments there. And people shared some really personal stuff. And that really meant a lot to me, that what I was saying for the 20 some odd minutes that I was doing it really spoke to people enough to want to share something back. And anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. It's hard to respond to every comment I get. I'm trying to keep up with all the emails, and it becomes consuming. And but it means a lot, and I do want to say thank you, and that's important. Anyway, the topic I want to talk about today is kind of inspired by some of these responses that I got. And it's interesting because, there's kind of a common thread between what a lot of people are saying, that we're all striving for truth and trying to get better at the art that we're focused on, no pun intended. And if you're a photographer, you understand this. And there's quite a range of what that means. There's a big spectrum of what that means to different people. Some people want to be professional photographers one day. They want to do it. Then you have people who want to teach and they want to be in photography that way. I got a lot of emails from people who are really serious about teaching, and it was nice to have some of those discussions. And then we have people over on the other end, and I don't want to call them amateur photographers because I've known people, we'll just call them non-professional, but they don't necessarily want to make it their living, which is nothing wrong with that. But they want to be better photographers. And how do you take something and get to the point where you're improving at it, you're getting feedback, you're going somewhere with it? And this is a broad thing that's going to take me a little while to narrow down. So we'll come back to this topic from time to time. But one thing I want you to consider is we have talked about before the importance of having your own website on here. And I want to talk a little more in depth of why I think that is. Most of us have Flickr accounts, and maybe some of us have 500px accounts, and there's a lot of avenues for photo sharing. Even Facebook has it on a level where you can post your photos, get feedback, and you're sharing that way. I think all those are great, and I think you should be participating in those. In fact, you definitely need to be participating in those. Even as dated as Flickr feels sometimes, you can't deny that it's probably the largest collection of largely Creative Commons tagged images on the internet. I mean, that's what it is. It's amazing. Those things do have a lot of value, but one thing you need to do, and part of this is, you're watching me because I'm not just sharing my portfolio with you. I do actually very little of that, but I'm trying to find something else to share that creates a community around things. And I would say it's successful right now because I've had some conversations with people, a lot, and that is enough for me, and it makes me want to keep going. So there's things you can do on your website that are really not so much part of something like Flickr or 500px. For instance, keeping a photography blog, or a vlog, as you're seeing here. But is there something you can write about? And the reason I'm saying this, I think that we're getting into a time that's a lot different than it was in the 70s, 80s, or any time before, where we have the internet, we have digital cameras, and there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of photographers. Don't let that scare you. It doesn't mean there are a lot of good photographers. There's just a lot of photographers. It also doesn't mean that it's taking something away from the individual. I would disagree. I think it actually adds, because you're able to meet so many people that are into photography, which back when I was a kid it was harder to find. I knew, I mentioned I'm here before, my dad's an illustrator, so I knew a lot of professional photographers, but as far as amateurs went, it was harder to get into back then, and so you don't have what you have now. And so that's a really good thing that we have that. So anyway, but having a website is very important, and being able to talk about it. Now, one thing, if you're thinking about your website, let's say you have one already, and if you don't, I did a whole bunch of tutorials about 6 weeks ago. I'll put a link below or in the show notes, however you're watching this, that you can draw back on that series of podcasts about how easy it should be to set up a website on a hosting service. Get your domain name, install WordPress. You got the 3 things you need: web domain name, a hosting platform, and a content management system, and there's no reason why you can't build anything on top of that. So, but anyway, if you think about how you gain traffic to your site, and this is a whole marketing discussion, and I am more than willing to talk about this. It's something I've been really serious about the last 2 years or so, and I've learned a lot by finally embracing that I need to learn some things about marketing. And photographers, we need to learn things about marketing. Art is so inward sometimes, and all of a sudden you're talking about, and it's hard sometimes. Sometimes I feel funny about, especially certain pieces specifically, about trying to hype them and sell them like a product. And it's a hard line to walk, but it is important. Otherwise, it's hard to get much response or many views on things. The other thing that, and I talked about this a couple years ago when I spoke in Paris at a conference called Le Web. I actually fielded a question at the end of the talk, and somebody was talking and they mentioned something about finding your images online. And the truth is that there's Google, which is by far the most popular search engine. There's things like Bing, and then they have subsets like for instance, there's Google image search. And the fact of the matter is that the old adage that Kodak used to promote all the time, that a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm sure everybody's heard that. In Google's eyes, a picture isn't worth any words. It's because search is text-based, and that's what makes it very important that you, at least on some basic level, learn how to write. And if you're interested in people looking at your work, that's the only way around it. It doesn't mean you have to be a great writer. It doesn't mean you have to be an author. It doesn't mean you have to be able to do screenplays. It means you need to be able to talk about your images. Let me talk about what I mean by that. For instance, if I post online a photo of a man and a dog or whatever, there may be software that's being developed that'll do this, and if you're watching this video far into the future, you may be laughing, thinking, anything can do that. But at the time, right now, there's no search that Google will go through that image and discover that, yes, this is a man and this is a dog. And so it's really important to understand how to tag your work. That's the very most basic thing. This isn't real exciting stuff, but it is important, and it's the only way people are going to find your work. For instance, let's say you put some images on Flickr, and when you upload them, it tells you, hey, what do you want to tag these images? It's really important to do. You must tag your work. Keep them relevant. Don't just spam stuff in there. If you can only come up with 5 tags, then at least make them 5 good ones. State obvious things. I wouldn't keep it vague. Like I wouldn't say color. But if there's a predominant red in your image, you might use red, for instance. Color doesn't narrow it down too much. Subjects in the image, those are things that people are going to search for when they're looking for images. I think I would even take it a step beyond that, and if you are keeping a website, I would encourage anybody who wants to kind of, a blog is a journal more or less, and I should have done this before the show. I will, for a future episode, cull out some of my favorite blogs. But sometimes it's really interesting when there's a photographer whose work you like, you're looking at their work, and all of a sudden they have this wonderful blog where they're talking about the process that went into those images, or they're talking about some of their techniques that they use. I remember I found a guy who lived in the country in France and kept this wonderful blog on how he did kind of a backwoods darkroom kind of thing, and had these beautiful images. Anyway, I'll find some stuff and I'll share it with you. But why not share those things? Because people are doing text searches on Google. They might run across your stuff and they might really like something that's there. Maybe that writing isn't quite your thing, and you want to do video work, and obviously I make videos. YouTube is a great platform. You still need to tag stuff and you still need to describe it. Anytime you see descriptions and titles, fill them out. I'm real funny on Flickr because I just don't like to title my work all the time, so a lot of them are missing titles, but I keep the descriptions. It's probably a bad search move because titles do take a lot of weight in a search, and if they're untitled all the time, it's harder to find things. So that's one thing I think a lot of photographers miss the boat on is, when it comes time to do promotion for themselves and share their images, and I'm not just saying if you want to be a professional photographer. If you want to be a professional, you have to be doing this stuff. In fact, you need to be doing a lot more. This is basic. But if you're trying to get better and you're trying to have that conversation online and gain respect and all that, I think those things are important. And it's important to understand how people come across it. And we'll talk more about marketing. It's kind of beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. Kind of what I'm talking is search engine optimization for images. So like for instance, if you do any HTML coding, or if you're using WordPress, forget the HTML. If you know HTML, you don't need to hear this. If you're using WordPress and you upload your images, and it uploads that image and there's extra fields to fill out, like title and caption and alt text and all that, fill those out. It's really important. That's how Google knows what image is on the page. It's how it shapes your content description. It knows what you're talking about in the post or on the page. Those things are really important. Really, really important. So anyway, those kinds of things. I just think photographers forget that a lot. I'm sorry, I'm kind of vamping here because I got a little bit sidetracked. But anyway, I'm just I guess what I'm trying to do is think of where to go with this, because leave comments here or leave a video response, whatever, and tell me, is this something that's useful to you? I'm doing these vlog things, and I'm trying to decide whether they're just going to get thrown into the main podcast, and we're just going to have a lot of updates way more often. I would like to do that, but I'm trying to figure out, is this the kind of content that people want to hear described? So if you're halfway interested, or start a discussion, leave a comment below, and maybe we can discuss a little bit. Some other things I want to talk about too. How important it is to track everything that you're doing. That's really important. And so we'll talk in future episodes about Google Analytics and things like that. And another thing that might be interesting to talk about, because I know I'm going to get questions on this, is copyright. And putting your images online, and should you watermark them, and how do you protect them from being scraped? And the short answer is I really don't worry about it, because like for me, it's worth the promotion. I don't watermark my images just because, like, aesthetically, I can't stand it. I don't want something on top of my image. That's personal choice. I know that there are people that I know very well who do that, and that's their deal, and that's fine. But as far as worrying about the copyright on things, I've got some pretty set opinions on that. I think it's worth the exposure, unless you're really established, unless you're Richard Avedon or somebody, and your images are being stolen. It's a totally different deal, because they're on a different plane than us mere mortals. But anyway, leave your comments below. Let me know if you want to hear more about this, or kind of on what topic. We'll push onward. But anyway, just to summarize, the gist of this is, do you have a personal website? I'm not talking about a Facebook account, and I'm not talking about a 500px or a Flickr thing. Those are all fine. You should be doing those. But I really think it's important to have a personal website, something that you control, something that stays, it's a buzzword, but evergreen. It's always there. It's like, no matter what happens to Flickr or whatever, you control all the content on your site. You're not in there with 500 other photographers, unless you gear your site to be that way. But it's really important to do that. It's also really important to learn how to write and to learn how to tag on a very basic level. You don't have to be great at it. In fact, one thing that's really cool, I think, about having a blog where you're writing and keeping journals, or even a vlog like I'm doing here, where you're talking into a camera, it's really interesting to go back and look at older stuff sometimes, on many levels. Sometimes it's embarrassing, and other times it's kind of interesting. And most importantly, you should start to see progress over time, and that's the most important part. I think more important than having a lot of viewers even on your website. Keep your website for you. Have it out there, certainly for people to see, and get used to practicing what you do kind of in front of folks, in a way. But I just really think it's important to have, and especially if you are looking to glean any kind of success from any of this stuff, you're going to get to a point where people want to see a website, and it's just, there's no excuse not to have one. It's so easy to do now. And like I said, I have some links below that will help you do that, should you choose that direction, which I hope you do. Anyway, once again, this has been the Art of Photography Vlog Edition. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll give you a little heads up. We're gonna look at some toys again, and just have kind of a fun Friday thing. And I've got another thing that I want to announce, and I'm burning to announce it, but I have to have one thing in place first. So anyway, it has to do with reviews that people have asked for a lot, and so I'll get into that hopefully tomorrow, but we'll see. Anyway, once again, been the Art of Photography Vlog Edition. Thank you guys for watching again. Thank you for all your comments, and I'll see you tomorrow. Later.